Spirit would be on this process, that your Spirit would be on our words, that you would give us grace for ourselves and grace for one another as we seek to what it means to be your people, living as your church here in Fenton. We give this evening to you, God. We give all of this to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming out, and those of you out in the internet, good to see you. Just to reorient ourselves to where we are and what tonight is about, this is a wet cement. If you don't remember what a wet cement is or why we call it that, we understand that the vision team has set up some forms. We have some shape to our vision going forward. The cement has been poured, and we're getting real close to having the guy come with the big floats and smooth it all out. And while it's still in that state, we have an opportunity to shift it and shape it a little bit and form it based on the input that you all are going to give to us tonight. We have an example of that from the first wet cement. There was some clarification that needed to be made in regards to our vision, and we did that. We took all of your input back and reconfigured and really reworked through that and reworded it for you. So that's why this is called a wet cement, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be presenting the work that the vision team has been doing since our last wet cement meeting and get your feedback. Make sure that everybody's tracking together and we can get excited together for where we're going. And that is our task, is to get that information from you. So we ask that when we get into our small groups or our Zoom groups, that everybody feels as if they can offer their opinions. Please share what you're thinking, what you're feeling, answer the questions that are asked at the tables. The questions will be the same all the way around. And we truly want to hear and understand what your reaction is to what we present. So we look forward to getting your cooperation and having that tonight. Just as another little reminder is what our vision frame is. And basically we look at it as this is where we're going. The middle of our picture is where God is leading us to go in the future. But this has to be within some kind of context. So there's 4 sides, 4 questions that help us to build this picture. And one of the first things is our mission, and that asks, or I should say, that answers for us, what is it that we're doing? What is it that we're doing? And on the other side of that is, why are we doing that? Our mission is going to ask, we have the word Joe here. What does Joe hear? What do our members hear? What does a visitor hear when they come in? And that is based on our values. And our values answer the why. Why are we doing this? And this is going to answer what Joe feels and what motivates him. These are 2 pieces that we had talked about in the last wet cement. Tonight, we're going to look at the other ends. That's our strategy. How are we going to accomplish our mission? Where does Joe go? What is it that he's doing to help reach this goal of to help us work towards our mission? And then finally at the top is our measures. When do we know that we've been successful? And these are the 2 pieces that we want to present to you tonight. Get your feedback and see if there's any clarification or any changes to anything that we need to make there. Just to fill in a little bit, in regards to our mission, where we landed after that first wet cement, there were some questions regarding building. What are we building? What does that mean that you're building? So the team went back and reworked a lot of that verbiage. And I think this is this on in a handout? You'll have it, okay. So the mission that we reworked says that we are building one another up on the foundation of Christ's forgiveness and peace. That's our mission. Our values are that Trinity is timeless. We teach God's unchanging truth. We are momentous. We see God's presence. We share experiences that we've had where we've seen God's presence and felt God's presence. Trinity will be relational. We're building up God's family, growing together. And that we're active. We're using the gifts that he has blessed us with, using it to love our brothers and sisters here in this church, our brothers and sisters in our family, our brothers and sisters in the community, and then out to the world. And then, like I said, strategies and measures, those are what we're going to be kind of breaking apart and getting your feedback on tonight. So, I want to stop there because last minute, I'm asked to give some information about our measures. I wasn't prepared to do this. So, let me break down our measures and the work that we've done in that section there. If you turn to page 3 in your handout, it lists some questions and it gives some definition and it gives you the Bible passages that helped inspire us to come to these questions and to come to these measures. And remember, these measures answer when. When do we know that we've been successful in our mission? When do we know that we've clearly communicated our values? That's what measures do. So this is not a progressive list that you start at a new member, starts at step 1 and then goes to step 2 and 3. This is not a progressive list, but the list absolutely connects to each other and they're all interconnected. And basically, we want somebody to be able to reflect that I trust God's truth. I receive God's forgiveness. Are they coming into worship? Are they hearing that in a corporate setting? I connect in God's church. Are our members connected to other people? Are they active in Bible study? Are they active in discipleship groups? Are they active in building relationships in some other way? Maybe it's a programmatic way. Maybe it's just a relationship way that's been initiated through some connection that's been made. I reflect God's love. How are they doing that? Are they contributing to the church? Are they taking opportunities to serve their neighbors? Are they extending ministry through missions? And then lastly, we want everybody to think, I live God's way. Am I seeking wisdom? Am I receiving accountability? And am I leading others? We've developed this list of kind of a self-accountability questions to think about. And that is how we understand. If we can help move our people with the power of the Holy Spirit to be able to positively answer that, I trust God's truth, I receive God's forgiveness, I connect in his church, I reflect his love, and I live God's way, then we know that we are working towards our mission, that we are successful when it comes to our measures and our vision and our strategy. So the strategy is the second part that we are going to talk about, and I believe that might happen after our first group. Fantastic. So, at this point, do you have some direction, Jacob, for the travel?
Give Vicki a round of applause. So now what's going to happen is we wanted to make sure that everybody was comfortable and we provided plenty of space for distance. It seems like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Okay, so we have 5 areas set up, but I think we only need 4. So we just want to make sure that there's at least one vision team member at each table who's willing to facilitate discussion. There's one area here in the narthex. Then there's 2 areas on each side of the parish hall. On the nearest side of the parish hall, let's just use 1. Okay? Bruce is going to facilitate the virtual. So virtual people, we'll put you in a breakout room momentarily. You'll get a little window pop up that says join breakout group 1. And Bruce will meet you there to facilitate your discussion. But what we'll do in just one moment is you'll go ahead, there's 4 tables gathered in the narthex, so about 4 or 5 people can gather there, and then 1 bank of tables on this side of the parish hall, and 2 banks of tables on the far side of the parish hall. So that's a total of 3 locations here, okay? So go ahead, and what your task is to have discussion around the measures. Now you're going to have somebody in your group that facilitates the conversation. They're going to have questions for you. You also, at the back of your packet, have a blank sheet that you can write comments on, okay? So you'll discuss there. If you don't want to share it in discussion, you can just write it and submit that paper at the end. We will collect those packets at the end of the night. And then when we come back in here, your table facilitators will come up and report on what your group said. Okay? So you can go ahead and go now, and I'll go help Soren make sure we get that breakout room set up. I think we're just waiting on one group. So when they're back in, but maybe if you are going to give the report from your discussion, go ahead and come on up. I think we even have dots here. I think those are 6-foot dots. So if you're going to be the reporter from your group, come on up. And then Bruce should be here anytime. We closed his breakout room. So Glenn, if you just want to check on those two groups and let them know, if you just want to check on those two groups and make sure they know we're ready for them whenever. Well, no, we're ready for them now. Okay. My agenda does allow for 5 minutes of travel time to and from the breakout rooms. So I just know once you release people, you have no control over whether they show up where you want, when you want. So like, anytime you say go from here to there, you got to be ready for it to take a while. All right. Okay, so we had 4 groups here on site and 1 virtual, and I only have 3 people. Great. So I need one. There should be 2 more people who are reporting from how their conversations went. Bruce, that's going to be you for your group, and Martin, if you'll report for your group. So we'll let Autumn take it away. Give Autumn a round of applause. What's your group number?
17. Okay. So overall, we had good comments from everyone in our group. We liked how, well, we talked about how some of the questions that we have are measurable, but some are also objective. We like the I statements, and they're both not only self-reflective, but it kind of, it's church reflective too. So, the church is also thinking about these things. So we did like how that is. Let me see. All the points are pretty important. Everyone liked what was written down and how we will do them. We did realize that some can be hard to measure. We talked about how the wisdom question was good and also connecting in God's church. These questions encourage us to work on these things. They're very self-reflective. We also, though, need to know more pragmatic. So, like, as the church, like, what will we do with these? How will we go about these? Some are hard for us to set up resources, training, and accountability just because we can't ask these questions to absolutely everyone. So just kind of how to work on that. But overall, yes, we liked how it can help us reach out to people, especially new members. So getting to have more questions to ask new members and bring them in a little bit more and having resources for them. But it's something, we're always working towards them and constant striving and how to do better. Yeah.
All right, what she said. Anyway, our group really, they liked best. They thought they were very comprehensive, no gaps, was very solid. They felt all those measures were interrelated, they overlapped, that they weren't they weren't progressive. And they especially liked the verse, the John 15:12. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Post that, and means grace, especially with everything that's going on in the world today, which led us to the, is any areas of your life that do you sense God is working right now? So there was some about that, just because of the state of things. Being more intentional, providing resources, yes, they were very excited about that. They felt that the idea of more intent based on those measures, it would lead to better servanthood. Your heart is full, leads to more investment in your church. A hesitation pursuing a life guided by these discipleship outcomes. That was kind of a heavy question. So we kind of went round and round. Didn't really have a clear answer on that. It just basically, these measures remind us, grace with one another along with the loving one another.
23.
23, group 23, give a round of applause.
Our group very much liked the format, the statement followed by the questions. And I think a lot of the direction we went sort of leads into strategies, because there were feelings that we need to be very intentional about offering resources to strengthen members in their spiritual growth so that they can answer these questions for themselves and as a congregation as a whole. There was no hesitation in adopting the measures. One observation was that we need to encourage involvement beyond Sundays, because many times it feels like we have 3 separate congregations here, maybe even 4 if you consider that there are a few people, I think, that attend the Wednesday night service once in a while that don't necessarily attend on weekends. But we need to find more and more ways to make it feel like we are a group instead of 3 separate or 4 separate congregations. One of the favorites was, am I contributing? That was an observation from one of the people. There were 2 suggestions. One, that we should post these measures before the live stream every week to keep them in front of people. And another was we should all put them on our bathroom mirror or the refrigerator to remind ourselves to ask each other these questions.
I did the, I have, we're the Zero Heroes.
Oh, 0.
I was in charge of the online folks, and I had a distinct advantage because David Lang, who developed a lot of this and with his group, was in my group. So I just kind of turned it over to David and then just sat back and hoped for the best. Anyway, we had a lot of discussion about the individual things, individual measures, and the question kept coming up, or kept arising to us, is that, are we looking at this as, are we judging, and I don't want to use the word, but for lack of a better term, are we judging the congregation or members of the congregation by these, or are these for judging ourselves or looking at them by ourselves? And what really came out of it was a distinct knowledge that we are not using this to look at people in our congregation, but as, are we offering and are we getting these kinds of things in front of people? In other words, if you have that opportunity, then we'll say, okay, if you have the opportunity but we're not using it, or we don't see those kinds of things, then maybe we need to change some of the things that we're doing. It was a little tough because they didn't have a handout. And so we had to kind of do it, back and forth, and my interpretation kind of got in there a little bit. So I think I can say that that whole group was very positive on doing this. They understand the process. Several of the people are either on the team or married to somebody on the team. So we, got kind of the inside scoop. So that's where we are.
Great. Give Group 0 a round of applause.
Okay, our group is, of course, group number 1. So about the what do you like best about it? I mean, that was it was interesting. We come out with this. Those are very concrete things to understand and follow. I mean, this is basically in the measures. I mean that it's bringing you a clear guideline, and for example, it gives you accountability questions. That was said as well. That was something which was stick out, and very short questions and very understandable. And somebody said, for example, if my kids came to me, I can help with the questions. It's a good point. I mean, my kids come to me, okay, I connect in God's church. Do I connect in God's church? What does that mean? and it gives you some good points where you can answer and guide. You know? The question, which area of your life, as defined by the measures, do you sense God is working right now? We didn't know, and until you came and explained it to us again, it was too late to come up with an answer, so I'll skip that. So, but eventually, would you have any hesitation, you know, enthusiastically supporting this and pursuing a life guided by these discipleship outcomes? And absolutely yes. So those were the outcomes. And I have to say, we were a really small group too, so we all did that like with very few people. Yeah.
Great. So again, if you have any other comments that you want to make sure recorded, go ahead and put them on your feedback form. That's the last page in your packet. We'll collect those packets at the end of the night. If you're virtual and you have comments you want to make sure get recorded, email them to Glenn. I don't know. Glenn would be, just email them to Glenn or anybody on the vision team, and they'll make sure it gets to us. Now Bruce is going to come up and share about the strategy.
I didn't even know I was going to talk tonight. Now I'm up here twice. Yeah, the nice thing about this framework, and we get down to here, and the nice thing about being part of this is how we do it. And that's a lot of what we've been working toward is, you know, we make the framework, but how Joe goes, or in other words, what do we do, and as individuals and as a congregation to make this all happen. So it's really boils down to 4 different areas. One, and this is the foundation that this church has been built on and that we continue, which is word and sacrament. That's not going to change. That's going to be the ground level. That none of that needs to change, and nor should it. So that'll continue on, and then but then we say, okay, how do people connect, and how do we connect with people? Okay, and let me just read this real quickly to you. A community of interest or feeling where people can become associated with one another, beginning to come together around the truth of Christ's birth, death, resurrection, which makes us one. So that's how we're going to connect with people. So the things that we do, the programs that get instituted and so forth, should reflect that and have that in the forefront. How do we connect with people? It doesn't do us a lot of good to sit in this little space and just tell each other what a great job we're doing. We need to get to other people. We need to support one another, and that is generally done, you know, by making sure that we know each other, and we know, you know, things that might be bothering someone, might be, you know, a good thing, you know, good things about them, you know, what do they do, what do they do with their children, and so forth. So we need to support, and here's the statement that came out of that. God sustains his people wherever they are. We are the body of Christ, and we are called to support one another as we grow together. So that's another thing that we want to make sure that we are doing as we implement all the future programs and ministries of the church. And finally, to celebrate. Very important that we recognize that what we've done as a church, what we've done as individuals, and what others have done, and make sure that everybody gets a chance to enjoy the fruits of God's gifts here. And the statement summed up is, we come together to observe special days and to commemorate special events with ceremonies or festivities. We celebrate our blessings and invite others into the joy of being in the church together. So it's not just about our group, but it's about the community at large, and how do we do that? So those are the things that we look forward to doing with the strategies, and those aren't defined yet. We don't know exactly what they're going to be. I think a lot of us have ideas, oh, the church should do this, or we should do this as a church, or we should do this as individuals. They're not defined yet, but with the strategies that are outlined here, if we make our various programs and everything fit that, we should be successful. And I think that's where God is leading us.
Give Bruce a round of applause. Great. I do think that they say public speaking is like, that's people's number one fear. I think it's like snakes and then public speaking, right? So getting up here to share about something as amorphous as how do you build a disciple is not easy. So I'm always proud of Vision team members when they do that. If you are virtual, computer ace Soren just received some documents from me that he's going to put in a Google Drive folder, so you have links to the documents that we're looking at that are being taught from. So those are coming to you in a moment. They'll probably be in the chat on Zoom, I think, a link. So now we'll break out again. You'll have about 20 minutes to discuss. It is like 2 till 8, so you'll have about 20 minutes to discuss, and then we'll come back together, and we'll report on that.
Okay, here I am. And here you are. It's the same group. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So, what did you think of all that? I'm sorry if I didn't get everything that we talked about to the general meeting there, but I think we kind of had a what I want to say. We had a little different perspective. I think everybody here is either related, well, they're related to someone else in the room.
I realize this question is going to need some clarity. The first one.
Oh, okay.
So what we mean by that is like, well, what do you like best about the idea of focusing the strategy on a few key areas rather than just saying, let's offer as many things as possible?
Okay.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not really, no.
All right. Now let me. Okay, here we are. What do you like most about the less is more concept with a clear strategy? In other words, we're trying to focus down into those 3 areas. The connect and the celebration, and now I'm looking for another piece of paper, and support. What do you think about focusing down on those 3 areas as opposed to just having the general shotgun approach of okay, let's try this and start out from every new thing that we do, it doesn't follow any particular program or any particular format, I should say.
I mean, in general, less is more is a good idea. If you can't focus on 100 different things, but you can focus on 3.
Yeah.
So, is that what you're asking, or?
Yeah, and you think that that's kind of been one of the things that we do, and not just Trinity, but as churches in general, that every time something new comes along, we go, oh man, that's really cool, we should do that. But if somebody down the road is doing exactly that, is there room for 2 people to do this, two congregations to
Okay, I think we are almost all back together. It looks like at least every group is represented in the room. So let's hear from our reporting people. Go ahead. All right, group 17, I believe it was. Give them a round of applause.
All right. The first question, the less is more. We like that it doesn't necessarily burn people out or overwhelm people. If there's less going on, people tend to remember what's happening. So instead of having all these things and people going, oh, I didn't even know that was happening, it's good to, if we kind of just condense it a little bit, we can remember what's actually going on. And it helps us to get to know people better. It gives us a sense of community and belonging. The second question, some of us felt that, I'm sure we all know that there's people here who are overwhelmed with things. But we also have people who do feel under involved in some areas, but involved at a good place in other areas. And we didn't really have any hesitations. We think it's pretty much what we need, and we need to just be consistent with it.
No, we're three. Just three. All right. The whole less is more once it was explained. Everybody agreed with that. The programs get watered down, the volunteers get burned out. So less events can create more energy, more creativity, and then that will just begin to perpetuate. The people I spoke to one felt a little underinvolved, wanted to help out more, but that was just due to the stage in life, not raising the kids anymore, working a job. So we're looking forward to being a little bit more involved. Others were excited to participate due to the different gifts that were in the group. In the trustees, for example, there's great administrative gifts in that group, and there's great technical gifts in that group. And they've developed a nice plan, and the only gap they felt was people don't know what the commitment is to participate in these events or in these groups. So there's where they felt that this structure, the structure you saw with the bricks, that would really lead to participation, because it would help with those gaps that do exist. If people knew what the commitment was. So by doing this structure, and actually the back porch, or the front porch, the living room, okay, that they love that. That just, oh, okay, that made it perfectly clear. So that was awesome.
Perfect. Now, Lisa, you're going to need to be ready to tell us your group number. They were 3. 20. You were 23. Perfect.
23. Okay, so our group, the lesson more, we didn't quite get all of it until he came around and explained it a little bit better. So we were didn't really answer that question so much, other than we looked at the words that we have on the blocks, and we liked the conciseness of that. The picture being, building up from the foundation, and word and sacrament being that foundation. We really like that as a group. The only thing about the picture is that they didn't like the spacing of the word and sacrament on the bottom, and then connect right above that. Graphics issue, yep, for the OCD people. Like that it focused on key areas for programming. With the involvement question, we'd like to connect more as a church as a whole, versus each service connecting with their own group of people, kind of allowing for that mingling to happen between each service group, I guess you could say, so that we have more whole group things that people can make those connections. Let's see. people tend to stay in the same patterns as far as like what things they participate in, what service they come to, and to maybe try to encourage to mix up those patterns so that you can meet people that are in the church and not think everybody else is a new member because you haven't seen them before. Also, another thing was for involvement to have more requests upon them, like people asked to help, either by staff or other members, because they don't want to just volunteer for something. So having that extended arm out to ask them to involve kind of encourages more involvement from the members. In our group, there were people that were over-involved because they've been doing a lot since the pandemic, making the church still run. And then a lot of and then part of our group was also under-involved because they haven't been to church, they haven't been involved in anything, and mainly because of the pandemic, but also because, sometimes you don't know where to start either. And a lot of people said that with the pandemic, church isn't church anymore, sterile environment, and totally disconnected with what we're doing right now. Feel like they're not connected with the members in the church. Hesitations were the only thing was support. Would like that fleshed out a little bit more as far as hold each other or encourage each other, build each other up, keep each other face sharp, service to others inside and outside the church, because it sounds like when it's read that it's just meaning members of the church, that we're supporting each other versus everybody outside the church as well. And assimilation of new people so that we can grow and help them grow within the church as well.
Group 0. Group 0.
Again, we had a very good discussion about a lot of these things, and hopefully I can just narrow it down just a little bit. What I think we can say about the less is more concept, this group said they like it because it guides but does not give limits. We necessarily won't do so many different things, but what we do will be limitless in its application overall. The current pattern of involvement, again, I had quite a few people that are quite involved, but none of them thought that they were over-involved. They felt that this was their calling to be involved as they are. And one of the things that came out was that they feel that a lot of people are under-involved, and that some of them are under-involved because they've not been allowed in, if you will, to do certain things. They just feel like they're on the outside, and that the small group does more. So we need to work on that. And then finally, would they hesitate to follow this format? Absolutely not. They thought that this was great. We all are under the impression, or though I shouldn't say impression, but we're all anxious to implement it, and everybody has ideas of let's, show me the steps 1, 2, and 3. And what we all have to step back and look at is, this is just saying we're going to take steps. 1, 2, and 3 are yet to be developed. So that's where we are, and it was a great group to lead. They basically took care of me. Thank you.
Thank you. So, what do you like most about less is more? Well, first of all, less is much easier to measure. So we have the measures, we talked about this before, and of course, if less, is there, we can measure the outcome and the success much better. That was a really good point. And also, some people, for example, come to the same programs and events. We're talking about many, many programs and events. Some people, the same people, come to programs and events. And how do we reach out if that happens? So maybe if we shave this down, you know, and bring this a little bit more out, that would be helpful. So that is basically, that was like most about this, less is more. So do you feel under-involved or over-involved? And actually, everything was there. So, I mean, we had a couple people who said, like, you know, I'm involved, but just right. Yeah, so it's good. But also saying, like, some people saying, I am under-involved because maybe I don't know how. And based, you know, on a good strategy, you know, there would be a better way to get involved. Or if we, in the strategy, we have the programs developed that we can know how to be better involved. As we know, we have a few people who are completely over-involved, you know, in things, and just like it's getting too much. So that is also part of the strategy that we can distribute that better. So would you have any hesitation? Absolutely not. The concept is good. The concept is great of the strategy. And again, because less is more, it's much more efficient, and we're looking forward to that. So thank you very much.
All right, I think that's everybody. Perfect. So, awesome. I'm going to hand it to Vicki, who's going to just kind of give you the update on where we go from here.
Thank you. So thank you, everybody, for your time and your attention and your open-mindedness and your being willing to share some of your reaction to what we've presented. We really appreciate it, and I'm sure, as evidenced by our reporters, that we got really good notes that'll come back to the team, and the team will process those notes and help us to keep walking forward. We will also be sharing this with the call committee so that as we continue our search to identify our shepherd, our new shepherd will have an idea of who we are and where we're going, and so that together he's coming into a place that has some identity and we understand our uniqueness, and he can partner with us so that we can grow disciples together that's going to impact our families and impact our community and impact our world. So that's pretty exciting. This seemed like it was a big holy crow kind of moment where we've got so many things we need to change and adjust with the vision, and then a new pastor, and then deacon leaves, and holy crow. But we're actually at this great place that we can build something together, fresh start all the way around. So we're at a very, very exciting time. You will see some of the fruits of our work start to roll out in the next few months. So watch for those Church Mouse emails. Watch for any of the social media platforms that we try and put some information out there. Watch your eyes here for those that come into the building, those that are comfortable doing that. Watch for any signage that we could start to get the information and get some of the stuff out as we start to live into and lean into our vision and our strategy. So thank you so much. Stay tuned.
I told Vicki she would close, and then I decided I'd add a couple of comments. I hope she won't hold it against me. Perfect. I know that for a lot of you, and for all of us, hey, Soren is the man on the camera because we keep moving around, and he's like pro production back there. So give him a round of applause. I know like all of us right now are going like, what is going on in the world, right? And particularly as we try to find places in our churches that give us a sense of safety and of comfort, and it seems like everything at church is completely different. But here's what I'm pretty sure about, like, we're not gonna be in the coronavirus pandemic forever. And we're gonna have to figure out how to be a church after. And we're going to have to figure out how to get back to being a church as we come out of it, right? And so sometimes a conversation like this that's highly operational and talks about things that we'll do when we are gathered in a time like this can feel very out of place. But I just want to point to the fact that, like, I was looking at my notes. I met Vicky and Autumn and Jane like 2 years ago this fall. And where Trinity was 2 years ago, none of this was in place. And if you were trying to navigate this pandemic, or trying to come out of this pandemic without a clear sense of what your mission is, or what kind of programming you're trying to offer, trying to hold everybody together through the crisis, and trying to re-articulate vision coming out of the crisis, I think would be multiplicatively more difficult. Right? That's a good word. 5 times more difficult, let's just say that, okay? I wanted to say 10, 20, 100 times, it'd be way more difficult, right? And so I think I commend you all for making this work, whether it's in person or virtually, because these are the conversations that a lot of churches aren't having, and then they're sort of at a loss as to what to do next. So I think Trinity is in a great place to be able to go, oh man, how do we start putting the pieces back together when we get back together? Well, now we've got some map. So that's really good. On that note, let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Just make sure your packets go maybe just back where you got them. Glenn, if you'll pull the fresh ones off of that podium, then just put them back on that podium on the way out. And if you've got any notes, we'll be able to get those and collate them. Thanks.